Welcome to Numina, the only place that's reverse engineered the College Board. We're going to show you how to solve these problems very quickly with mathematical precision and with 100% confidence. That means you no longer have to rely on the answer key, but purely on the power of your knowledge. The mind is a powerful tool, and we're going to show you how to use it. Here's how it's done.
Here we go with question 4 from section 10. Remember, you will see this question 3 times. Look to the top right corner for the concepts that are involved in this question. We'll be testing for parallel, fragment, and pronoun errors. The second time around, we're going to read the question and go through the grammar involved, so make sure to take a lot of notes. And at the last time, we'll read the question and give you a chance to answer the problem using what you've learned. Here we go. Because fiscal problems will force some cities to lay off firefighters, and so the state legislature must decide whether to provide those cities with financial aid. Okay, looking at A, I see an error in A, so let's go ahead and eliminate A. I see a different error in B. B is gone. C looks okay, we'll keep C. I see an error in D and the same error in E, and C is our answer. How'd you do? Do you know why we eliminated some of these words and punctuation marks? Do you know the grammar that's involved? Don't worry if you don't. Let's move on to the grammar. Let's look at question 4 again, and this time make sure you have your pencil and paper and be prepared to take a lot of notes. Remember, we will talk about parallel, fragment, and pronoun errors. Okay, before we get started, let's go over a note about subordinate clauses. Now, if you already know about subordinate clauses, then this will be a good review. If you don't, then pay close attention. Subordinate clauses include a subordinate conjunction, plus a subject, plus a verb, and sometimes an object. Now, you should note that a subordinate clause cannot stand alone as a sentence. What does that mean? Well, that means a subordinate clause by itself would be a fragment. Also, usually a sentence containing subordinate clauses takes on this pattern: a subordinate conjunction, a subject, a verb, sometimes an object, comma, subject plus verb plus an object again, possibly. That last part you can refer to as an independent clause. Okay? So now let's look at our sentence here. Because is our subordinate conjunction. Fiscal problems are subject and will force a verb. Keep this in mind as we go through all of our choices. Looking at choice A, I notice we have a conjunction, a coordinating conjunction. We have a note here about coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions can carry over and imply the subordinate conjunction from the dependent clause, thereby causing a fragment. Well, let's look. We have an example here. Let's look at our example. Because I was hungry and because I was sick. Here we have the implied because repeating again and leads us to having a fragment. We have 2 dependent clauses and no independent clause. So we have a fragment in this example. Well, let's look to choice A. Anthony's listening. In choice A, how can we apply what we just learned about coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions to choice A that will lead to these parallel or fragment error?
Ryan, I think you did a great job explaining it already. We have in choice A and joining either two dependent clauses with the because understood in the second clause, or and trying to join a dependent clause and an independent clause together. If it's trying to join an independent clause and a dependent clause together, we would have a parallel error. If it's trying to join 2 fragments or 2 dependent clauses together, then it would lead to a fragment because we're missing an independent clause. So we can, from just looking at those 2 points, we can eliminate choice A.
Great. So let's go ahead and eliminate choice A. And let's look to choice B. Here we have another fragment error. Why? Well, we've circled firefighters. Why do we circle firefighters? Well, in choice B, it seems like firefighters is acting as a subject for an independent clause. Well, it's not. If you look closely, firefighters is actually the object to the infinitive phrase to lay off. And as we know, objects of our infinitive phrase cannot act as subjects for another independent clause.
Also, to lay off firefighters is still part of the original dependent clause, beginning with because. So the firefighters part should be included as part of the dependent clause and therefore cannot be part of a new clause. And so B is definitely a fragment. We can get rid of B.
Great. What about C? C looks okay, Anthony's listening. What do you think?
C actually looks great. If you look at C, you'll see that the answer choice rids itself of and so. So you don't have that coordinating conjunction mess that we found in A. And then after the comma, we have an independent clause. So we're going to keep C for now. Let's move on to D.
Okay, in D, I noticed we have a semicolon in D. Here, if you know anything about semicolons, you know that we need to have a full sentence or an independent clause on both sides. If you look to our note, we've listed this tip for you. The clause before the semicolon must be an independent clause. Otherwise, it's a fragment. And we've already established with the subordinate conjunction because we have a subordinate clause before the semicolon. We do not have an independent clause. Thus, we have a fragment in D. But we've also said that we have a parallel error in D. Why is that, Anthony Listening?
Well, the semicolon functions as a coordinator, meaning that it's supposed to join two equal components. The first part of the semicolon is the dependent clause, beginning with because, and then the second part we have an independent clause. Clearly, these two are not equal, so we have a parallel error as well.
So we can get rid of D for either fragment reason or parallel error. Moving on to E, well, we have that semicolon still, so we still have a fragment and or parallel error. But we have another error in E that you guys should know. What is that? Well, we have this pronoun this. If you take a look at our note, we state, on the College Board, a demonstrative pronoun must precede a noun. Example, this book. In choice E, we do not have a noun. We're missing that noun. So it's confusing or unclear what the pronoun this is referring to. So we have a pronoun error to go along with the parallel and fragment errors in E. So E is definitely not our correct answer. Well, that leads us back to C. How do we know? Do we know confidently that C is our answer, Anthony Listening?
Well, let's do a check. So we have, because fiscal problems will force some cities to lay off firefighters. That's our original dependent clause. And then we got rid of the and so in C. So with that out, the remaining part of the sentence is the state legislature must decide whether to provide those cities with financial aid. In this case, we have a full independent clause, as noted in the brackets. So we have the pattern we mentioned in our note originally in 2. Usually a sentence containing subordinate clauses takes on this pattern, which is a subordinate conjunction plus the subject plus the verb plus possibly an object, sometimes it may not contain an object, comma, plus another subject plus a verb plus may or may not contain an object. In this case, both clauses contain objects, and the first clause is a subordinate clause because it starts with the subordinate conjunction because, and then the second clause, which comes after the comma, is an independent clause. This seems to be our answer. Let's circle C.
Okay, here we go for the third time. Remember, we've kept the notes here on the screen for your convenience. And remember, we're dealing with parallel, fragment, and pronoun errors as indicated by our hashtags in the top right corner of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and read the question one more time. I'm going to give you a moment to pause the video so you can go ahead and try to apply all the grammar that you've learned and solve this question yourself. Then we're going to go ahead and solve it on our side. Are you ready? Here we go. Because fiscal problems will force some cities to lay off firefighters, and so the state legislature must decide whether to provide those cities with financial aid. Okay, go ahead and pause our video now. Okay, did you solve the problem? Did you find the answer? Were the points useful? Here you go and watch us solve the problem. Looking at A, we have an error in A. We have a parallel or fragment error here in A. We can eliminate A. We have a fragment in B. B is gone. C looks good. Let's go ahead and keep C. We have again parallel or fragment error in D. Another parallel or fragment error and pronoun error in E. E is out. Our answer is C.
Now remember, if you need any help with any of these grammatical points listed with the hashtags, go to our website and search our archives and learn. Numina, empowering minds.